Welcome to Xartup, Sarthak. To introduce Sarthak, he is the co-founder of InVOID, which is a Y Combinator Winter 21 backed company. They deal in the digital KYC space. And again, a very warm welcome to you, Sarthak.
Thanks, Shubham. Glad to be here.
Pleasure having you. Pleasure having you, Sarthak. So, can you please walk us through InVOID, what exactly it is for the audience who are coming to know about it for the first time?
Sure. So InVOID helps companies, build a layer of trust when they're offering products online, right? You go to open a bank account, or you want to trade in certain currencies or stock market, or you want to, get onboarded yourself as a blue collar workforce in Rapido, or you are a merchant using payments from BharatPay, or you are a merchant who's enrolled on DotPay to give digital offerings for your menu, for your home delivery, etc., etc. So for all of these services, you need to get validated, verified on these platforms, right? And if somebody would go do it manually, they would take at least 2 to 3 days to gather different data sources, understand the images given for the verification. So we automate all of that process and bring it down to 60 seconds or less to make sure that your customer onboarding isn't impacted because of the verification or the regulatory requirements, right? So we let you onboard at least 5x more users every day as compared to something that you would have been doing manually. So that's what InVOID does.
That's amazing. So moving to the very early stage before you found this company, you were a software engineer, right? You come from a computer science background. So what was it like before founding InVOID? How was your journey? How it inspired you to begin your entrepreneurial journey moving forward?
Sure. So, I've studied from Delhi, and Delhi offers a plethora of opportunities to, have that kind of exposure, in the sense that there were different opportunities, hackathons, competitions going on constantly, and, would get to know about these things. So first, I created a small social commerce type platform for students in my college. So that was my first B plan, or so to call, something that I wanted to do on my own. So it was second year of college, I built that. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so I wanted to build that, and then soon realized that, that requires a lot of attention, and was taking sort of, I was having distraction in terms of studies. So stopped doing that, completed my degree. And while I was doing my degree, I completed 2 more internships. And by the end of my 4th year, I had sold a project to the government of India. So that's when I realized that, it's something that I can do, build products on my own, start from scratch, take that kind of responsibility and ownership. But at the same time, I also did MIT's entrepreneurship bootcamp, which teaches you a bit about the framework of starting up. What are some initial terms that you can look at, and how do you build a business when you not from that background, right? So that helped a lot. I started working at Ixigo. The job was great. I don't think I have any complaints regarding that. I think it's a great organization to work. And I think it's a myth when people say that, people always leave to build something on their own because they're not satisfied with their jobs. But in my case, I think I was more than inspired by the founders themselves that, they've done something great. Why not if I can try something of my own? So I left my job. I think it was a year I was working at Ixigo and I left it. And I started building something in the computer vision domain, right? But not, we weren't solving this problem, right? So we were still in B2B space. We were solving for retail, right? FMCG brands in offline space, but that was not a really scalable idea. And you couldn't really, find a lot of backers as well. I mean, investors would say that this is not something which would sell, but, and of course that got validated also. A lot of brands wanted to try a product, but never really buy it, or, trust us with their settings or configuration in the offline store. But luckily, while we were doing this, struggling, not able to realize where to go, we were also experimenting with other ideas which were using the same technology, right? The tech stack that we had built. So this was one of the ideas which we stumbled upon, because one day when we were booking an Uber for one of our meetings, our wallet said that it's inactive, and the reason why it was inactive was that our KYC was expired, right? And KYC is something that we realized, I've never really visited the wallet office or bank or anything, but yet, for the KYC, I need to visit a store and do it on a weekday when time is such precious thing. You can't really take a leave to go 5-6 kilometers away and do your KYC. That's when we realized, we wanted to talk to certain wallet companies, shared mobility companies, and see, if this is something that they want to solve. So yeah, that's when we realized that we needed to pivot and we needed to solve this problem. So we started with one of very small customers back then. It was called MobiC, Zip. It's called Zip now, electric mobility. They were into shared mobility primarily before they turned into B2B logistics now. So they were one of our first few customers, and that's how the journey started, where we kept on going with smaller clients, then a bit, bigger clients, and then clients reaching out to us, customers reaching out to us, and hence doing the product-led growth at InVOID.
Amazing. So again, coming to an early stage part of it, like how did you get your co-founder? Was he again from Mexico, or how did you guys network and started this?
Sure. So I met my co-founder at the boot camp that I was talking about, the MIT Entrepreneurship Bootcamp. So he comes from a typical business and finance background. And when we met there, we realized that we had that zeal to build something of our own. And when we came back to India, we used to meet every weekend and sort of brainstorm and see what we could do together. And then when we was a bit confident that, yeah, a partnership can work and we can start something, because our skill sets were complementary, right? And it was very attractive to a lot of investors when they could see that somebody comes from a tech and product background and somebody comes from a pure finance and business background. So that combination was great. And then we started our journey together. I think it has been great since then.
Great. So did you have any other startup ideas while building InVOID, or was it fixed that this is what we would like to go? And in the first attempt itself, you hit the bullseye. How was it like?
Look, we started with something else. We started with solving a problem in the retail domain. Then we were going in some computer vision direction, which was object detection models and supply chain management using computer vision. We were exploring a lot of ideas because AI is, you have to solve a very specific use case with certain accuracy in computer vision problems. You cannot just go out there and solve a production level problem with 50% accuracy or 60% accuracy. You have to have at least 90% plus accuracy. So we were trying different domains where our product, our tech stack could solve a use case to an extent that the automation is there. It's not a person sitting behind the AI and doing things manually, checking what AI is doing. So I think this was the use case which fit in, but prior to this, we were doing like 4 or 5 other projects.
Great, amazing. So any frameworks that you can come up with on how did you decide that InVOID is something that you should go ahead with? How did you validate this idea at the first place?
I don't have a lot of jargon or the framework to tell, but to be very honest, it was that we did a lot of hustling in the sense that we would talk to a lot of people, a lot of potential industries, right? So we didn't stick to one industry. Where we landed, we initially thought that this was the industry that we wanted to crack a problem in, but then we realized that it's there are so many industries, so many niche possible, that if you could restrict yourself, then you'd be doing injustice to yourself. So we talked to a lot of people, had mentors on board from different industries in the starting itself, who had experience. So I think that is something that helped us look at different industries, domains, take a problem statement, pitch it to, have so many cold pitches. I can't even remember people who I knew through my Exigo network, or my founder knew through their investor network or business network. I think we pitched to all of them. And that's how we realized that there are certain industries where this product might work, and one industry, particularly KYC, where it was solving the use case in the best manner. So that was not a particular framework, but yeah, something we could call hit and trial, maybe.
Got it. And in terms of like talking to users while validating a startup idea, let's say people get stuck, right? Because a bit of biased opinion when we talk to our users. We try to make sure that whatever we are doing is correct. So how did you like avoid that sort of bias? If you can help us with any sort of example, if you have.
Do you mean the bias brought by me or the bias brought by the company that I'm pitching to?
Yeah, the bias brought by you or the founders whenever we are trying to talk to our customers in terms of validating an idea.
I think for us, we were in the B2B space, right? And we did not have a lot of knowledge of the business that we were going to solve, but we had pretty decent knowledge of the tech stack that we were building or the product that we were building. So our bias, I think we went with clear mindset that, we'll build with one company and whatever they say we'll do, and then branch out and find other low hanging fruits in different companies, right? So one company we sat with for a week, right? Whatever they wanted, we built that without even thinking that if it's a product or if it's becoming a service sort of a situation. So a lot of people, think that they will come up with a product like in the first go, or, that we know what we're doing and whatever we know is like the ultimate truth, but that's not the right way to go about things. You have to do a lot of hit and trial. You have to sit with the customer, see what they need, become their service arm for a while, right? Whatever they want, even if it's not the part of the product, you need to see whether it can solve their use case. Once it solves their use case, then you can see whether when you move to the next company, do you want to retain those features or can you build something else? So then what happened was, when we were working with companies in this manner, we added a lot of capabilities which our competitors were lacking because they had gone with a single mindset of solving one use case for one company. And then, they thought that only that company, those type of companies they want to approach. So that was sort of, they got stuck in that process. So we expanded our bandwidth. We let weekends go away, talk to companies and see whatever we could build for all of the companies that we were talking to, and then decide on what our product is going to be and what are the features that we're not going to serve to our customers.
Got it. So forward. To summarize it, it's like you started with just one company, making sure that they are satisfied with the product, they're hitting product market fit in terms of their NPS score or whatever usability that they have. And then you focused on expanding it up to multiple companies, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. And then moving forward in terms of the industry scenario, how was it like in that was it the early days of the digital identification space? Were you the only player over there? How did you perceive competition at that point of time? If you can walk us through that journey as well.
Sure. We weren't the first company to do this. I think we were at least third or fourth to do it. And our competitors were doing it for, I think, more than 5 years now. But what really clicked for us and why we were able to catch up with that gap was the timing, right? India was going through that phase of digitization, right? You see fintechs coming up, and it was exactly like, it was around 2018-19 that you see a lot of these fintech companies, these shared mobility companies coming up, right? You see Rapido growing, you see Bounce growing, you see fintechs growing, you see banks, Equitas Digital Finance Bank, home loans, all becoming digitalized, right? Because that's the need of the hour. So that was where we were placed. But the real catalyst was COVID. I mean, I hate to give COVID as the parameter for any kind of growth, but the truth is that it has fast forward the cycle that these companies or the legacy players do to digitalize their whole process, right? So I think we were right there when COVID happened. We survived, right? I mean, we could have easily died before COVID, but we made sure that we had some clients going on. And in fact, the timing is very crucial, and we were just before the timing, and that helped us. Now the legacy players who were there for a while survived on funds, but then once this happened, we were the ones who were surviving on profitability and the revenue. So that's the difference that was key with the competitors.
Got it. So once you hit your product market fit in terms of having few companies starting from just one company and then making sure you have multiple vendors using your product, then did you go about raising funds, or did you raise funds in the initial days itself?
So to sustain ourselves initially, we did raise some money from incubation. I wouldn't say raise because it's a grant plus an incubation money. It was not a VC. It was, I think it was 2018 end or 19's beginning. We got incubated at IIT Roorkee, their entrepreneurship cell, and that money we used to survive for a year or year and a half, and then we were surviving on our profitability and revenue till we did Y Combinator, where we eventually realized that we could raise money to experiments in different markets, right? Whatever market we were serving, we could expand that market size by tapping into adjacent domains. So that's when we raised the funds, and one of the first few funds that we had was Y Combinator, and then followed by my micro VCs and angels from the Valley.
Got it. Got it. So how was your Y Combinator application journey? Plus, how did you gain from their experience, their mentorship as well?
It wasn't the first time that we had applied for Y Combinator. I think it was a third attempt when we applied to Y Combinator. First, we were pre-launch, then we were launch, but pre-PMF. And then the third time we had revenue, PMF, and everything with us. So yeah, it was great. I think YC gives a lot of exposure in the terms of, obviously their mentors are great. You get people from Airbnb, the founders themselves, Airbnb, Twilio, I don't know, Twitch. All these people have these journeys which, you can relate to, because they have had a lot of struggle and they didn't reach the product market fit in the first go. They didn't solve the right problem in the first go, right? So so that is something that was very helpful, realizing that every startup has ups and downs. No journey is similar in a startup. So yeah, that was helpful. Again, their frameworks, their understanding of the domain, their approach towards what's going to come next rather than what's there today is something which is very helpful. And again, the network and the brand that it brings is something I don't need to tell anyone. I think everybody's aware.
Yeah. So what would be your advice to sort of early stage founders who are willing to apply to Y Combinator right now? What should be their approach while filling the application, while maybe trying to hit PMF or trying to hit initial revenue?
I think if I talk specifically about Y Combinator, I don't think they have a preference as such. They don't have a bias about what industries they want to go with, or if they want to go pre-revenue, pre-launch. They don't have such bias. But what's important for them, and should be important for a founder as well, is how well do you understand your market, right? How well can you pitch it to anyone who would really go out and reject all of your statements, but you can still stick and are driven enough to solve that use case, right? Does not matter if you have worked in that industry for 10 years. It does not really matter if you come from that background or not. But what really matters is how well have you understood your market and the solution. And if that is enough, then can you build it in a big enough market, right? Can this be a big enough market that you're going after? It should not be a small problem statement. It should be at least, at least start small, but has to have a bigger domain to solve. So yeah, I think of the companies that that were in my batch, I think all of them turned out to be really great. Zepto being one of them. Zepto was with me in my batch. I think they were solving a use case, but then they pivoted a bit to form Zepto from Kirana Cart. I think that's a great example that they came on with, but they were really, really passionate to solve that problem of grocery, of quick commerce, and they did it pretty well. So that's an example that I like to give. So again, your application is like, I think the application itself will give you so much clarity while you're filling the application that asks the right set of questions. And when you discuss it with your co-founders, or when you sit with the application yourself, you'll realize there are a lot of questions that you haven't answered before starting up. So it will help you. It will compel you to think more about what you're solving and give you more clarity eventually.
Makes sense. So what happened beyond Y Combinator? Like after you got into the cohort, you got the mentorship. So then it was all about growth. I'm expecting, like, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then what sort of growth metrics did you set for yourself, and how were you tracking them?
All right. So our metrics were mostly around the MRR domain and the ARR domain, right? Our revenue rate was our North Star metric. we were doing close to $100K in MRR when we were coming out of Y Combinator. I think it was $120K dollars. But when we entered Y Combinator, it was 60K, right? So we were tracking ARR and we were reaching out to companies, smaller companies, right? We were building tail of companies. We did not want to go after every single enterprise in India. But what we wanted to do was get everyone who wanted to onboard customers faster with us, right? Be it an enterprise or not an enterprise also. If it's a startup which got incorporated a month ago, we wouldn't mind having you on board, because we believe that having that tail and having one company as an outlier would be good enough to solve our use case, right? That's how mostly all B2B companies have grown in the past, right? Razorpay being one of them, a Stripe being one of them. They all made a tail of customers, and then some of them would give you a peak and the rise, and it would sort of be balanced that way. So we did cohort analysis of our customers, right? What cohort do they lie in? What's their scale? What's their market? So these are some things that helped us understand where to navigate and how we could have more customers on board, smaller customers in a rising market, and hence they would eventually lead to a greater MRR or an ARR. Those are metrics.
Yeah. So how did you come up with, like, these were your North Star metrics, right? ARR and MRR, and whatever actions you were doing, whatever activities you were doing within your startup should lead to the growth of these metrics. So when someone is in their early stages, let's say, can be a consumer tech startup, can be a B2B SaaS startup like yours, then how should they go about deciding what is their North Star metrics?
I think two things that one can focus is revenue and profitability. I don't know, I like to stress enough on revenue and profitability because that is the leverage that can get you anywhere, right? Because if you have that, funds will flow in, right? People would want to invest in you. It is our case, right? When we went out initially, there were not a lot of investors who were interested in us because we were solving a B2B problem in India, which has certain margin, has a lot of competition, other reasons to it. But once we had that revenue and profitability, we became a hot property, right? So it's important to prove yourself that way. And I think in B2C, it's more difficult to create revenue. So if you create revenue in B2C, you valued way more than, a non-revenue generating company. So I think the revenue is one that you should definitely focus. Two is, I don't know if you could quantify it, but how well you're solving the problem. Again, I'm iterating on it again, but once you solve that problem, it again leads to you getting people paying you for what you're solving, right? So you have to create what people want. So these are two things that you should immensely focus on when you're solving a problem or you're looking to start up.
Makes sense. So, and in your journey, who were the what kind of failures you faced? Like any stories wherein you put in lots of hours, lots of efforts, and you failed, which you would like to mention because you went through that early stage journey by yourself, right? Before Y Combinator, 2-3 years, I guess, when you started in 2018. So, what were the mistakes you made in the early stages of your journey?
I think one mistake that we definitely did was not identifying correctly which are the customers who have high chances to get converted, and identifying hot leads and cold leads. So we were going after enterprises a lot initially because we thought that they would bring in investors. If we had big brand names in a customer list, that would be great and would sound very heavy in terms of our credibility. But we realized that it was not easy for us to go that route. So we did spend a lot of time getting enterprise deal. And once we realized that it was a mistake, we went on to get startups and growth stage companies to use our product. And that made us realize that we were wasting time in enterprise deals. Once we have grown enough, we have enough funds, we have enough team, we have enough experienced people, then it would have made sense to go after enterprise level customers. I think that was one thing that we realized. I think, I think that, and second, it's not a mistake per se, but one should always look at their legal and compliance very carefully, right? And accounts as well. Startup founders don't do that usually. I think we were also sort of ignoring it for a while because we are so hell-bent on solving the problem. I've been speaking about it for a while now, about solving your problem, solving a use case. But what you shouldn't miss is the compliance and the legal aspect of things. Have someone from a network who's studying law, at least review your customer agreements or your TNCs if you're a B2C product. Now, these things matter. These things can make or break things for you. So it was not a mistake, but we sort of did not look at it very carefully initially. But once we started doing it, we realized there was a lot of scope to improve in that domain. So these are two things that you should definitely look at.
Amazing. And like when you mentioned about legal and compliances, I would like to come to the part of hiring as well, wherein you do have a very lean team, right? Like pretty much inspired by Basecamp. I'm just expecting like they hit some 1 million ARR revenue with just maybe single digit employees in their team and have written a quite interesting book on this as well. So how did you manage to do this, like very lean team rather than focusing on expansion of employees?
I think so our would be the same case as well. I think we were 9-member team when we hit 1 million ARR, and I think we hit 2 million with 15 or 16. I think what we focused was on getting people who were motivated enough and wanted to prove something either to the world or to themselves. I think we all came from that category, me included, right? I wanted to build something. I was driven to build something. So luckily we got people in that domain who were not really from tier 1 colleges or were not experienced people, 5 years, 10 years experience, but who were driven to solve a problem. And slowly what happened was they were really into the growth, because growth aspect of building a startup, because the best thing that can come out of a startup, whether it was a successful startup or a failed startup, is the growth that you can get out of it, right? As a person, as your skills, right? People who were not writing production level code in different companies or were still in college, they got exposure to production level code, right? The responsibility was mine if something would go wrong on production, but the achievement was yours, right? You were building it, and you were if you're getting the guidance, you're building it, you're doing it on production. I think that was an exposure that I promised to everyone who I was bringing on board, and they got that, right? At marketing level, business level, or technology level. So giving them that confidence and having them, and then turning them into generalists, right? So if you are a backend engineer, you should definitely look at DevOps, right? Because it is a career growth for you. Plus you have new skill set, which will make you eventually more valuable, right? I don't expect you to stick to my company for 5 years, right? I know you were here for a stepping stone in your career, in your journey. Utilize it as that. Make the most out of my startup. Build products, roll out experiments, failure, whatever happens, you grow here, and then you go on to the next level. I think that has been helpful because I have let people go from the company who wanted to join bigger companies, and I've recommended them myself in those companies because I knew they've shown enough trust and loyalty with me. I think it was time for me to give them back as well. So yeah, if you can promise someone growth and give that confidence to them, they'd definitely like to join. But again, today hiring scenario is a bit different. I can't really comment how this works today, but at least in 17, 18, 19, this really was my plan, and it worked.
That's amazing. And when you come from a technical background, right? You pick someone who's from a business background to work with. And here, what we have seen even at Xartup, this is very difficult to get a technical co-founder to build a startup. Let's say someone has a tech intensive idea to work on, and they don't get hands-on experience to build that. Second, they don't get a technical co-founder to exploit it. In most of the cases, like in some cases, that is possible. So what would you recommend someone who is going through this journey?
I think every weekend I have a call with someone who's struggling with this problem. People have a lot of ideas, but they can't find a technical co-founder or somebody who can code for them. I think one easy way that in discussion with such people, such founders, is that they go ahead and try freelancers. Again, it's a bit risky, but at least it can get you a product or an MVP to convince an investor for money, and then money, if you have money, then you can bring other people to code for you. Or you go ahead and build that MVP to attract a technically skilled person. So you have to do that hard work yourself, either through a no-code app or through a freelancer. But some portion you have to build. If you're building a product which is tech heavy, then you have to have that knowledge, even if you are a CEO or comes from a business background. If you're building it, you should have knowledge. And today, learning coding or building no-code products or a small MVP would not take a lot of time. I've seen people coming from business background and at least build a website very easily, like in 6 hours, 5-6 hours, with the content. It's that easy to build a website at least today. So you should start with something, give other people to, feel that, yeah, you can do it, you want to do it. And it's not just, everything is not dependent on the technical co-founder you plan to bring, right? So you have to give them something to latch on to, something to give them confidence. But yeah, this is a problem that you have to solve with either you join boot camps or you join competitions, you join hackathons, and there you meet with people, network with them. And that's how you can find your technical co-founder and make them believe in what you believe, right? So it very much depends on how much trust and confidence they have in the problem that you want to solve.
Got it. Got it. So we'll just come up to the last question, and then we can open up the floor for AMS. Folks who would like to interact with you as well. So you can raise your hands if you have any questions. So my last question is around your plans, like your future plans with InVOID, and if you can like walk us through that as well.
Sure. So I was telling you yesterday, InVOID got acquired very recently. And so for plans, I mean, what I plan to do in future is also look into consumer side, build something in the consumer side. I think I'm very fascinated with fintech today, but I'm sure there is going to be a revolution in the Web3 domain or the blockchain domain very, very, very soon. So I want to build meaningful products in that space. So yeah, currently looking around finance and Web3.
Amazing. So congratulations, Sarthak,
Thank you.
on your acquisition.